وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا إن أوهن البيوت لبيت العنكبوت لو كانوا يعلمون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our discussion yesterday was in regards to the principles and aspirations of activism. We started, and inshallah tonight we will finish and then go on to our main topic for this evening. We stated yesterday that we are very much in need of a renaissance around the world, and that Karbala gives those principles to us. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam spent his period of his imamate divided into various tasks and duties. At times he would be teaching, at times he would be writing, at times he would be sending his ambassadors to various parts of the Ummah in order to understand what is taking place and gather support for his ideals and his movements. And eventually, when the Muslim Ummah came together, he was in a position to be able to raise the banner and move towards the battlefield of Karbala. This shows us that Imam alayhi salam was always active against injustice, always active in trying to bring about justice and harmony within his society. We stated yesterday that the world is in a very dangerous state, and that state is that no civilization before it has actively sought to destroy its own planet. We are the first people in the history of mankind that seeks actively to destroy our own planet by virtue of the way in which we have chosen to live. And most scientists have predicted that by the year 2050, the world that we have today will be a very different world at that point. That will primarily be because of things like the pollution that we have put into our ecology, the amount of pollution that we put into our atmosphere. And these things will leave a complete change on the face of the planet. We are cutting down the Amazon rainforest the size of the country of Wales every single year. And at this rate, if we are to continue to do this, by the year 2050, the lungs of the planet Earth will have been completely destroyed altogether, not being able to reproduce oxygen sufficient enough for humankind to be able to breathe. The amount of pollution that we dump into our oceans and into our soils is degrading our soils to the extent that it may lead mass famine. The amount of pollution that we pump into our skies is accelerating the rate of global warming, which will impact the way in which our seasons are, will impact the way in which there are natural events such as hurricanes destroying parts of our planet. We have reached whereby now the bombs that we have created can destroy entire countries and level countries with one bomb. This would suggest that the human community would think to themselves that this needs urgent response, that this is no longer tenable. This way of life is a completely untenable way of life. And it only requires one of these many things to happen to destroy the system of our living. We stated from the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a most famous verse that we are very well aware of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that our like of living is like that of the spider who builds his house. The spider thinks that his house is so powerful, so strong. The reality is that even just to blow it strong enough could destroy the house of the spider. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the parable, the similitude of those who take guardians beside Allah is as the parable of the spider who takes a house for itself. Surely it is the most frailest of houses, if only it was to understand this matter. And the way in which we have built our society in thinking that we are so strong, reality is that we are on the verge of collapsing our own society. This demands urgent activism. It demands that our youth especially become aware of these challenges and join with those organizations, with those leaders that are trying to create a sustainable, balanced, just planet. We stated yesterday that the first principle needs to be that our young brothers and sisters must educate themselves about these issues. We must be a reading community. We are unfortunately a community that relies on the TV, relies on the pulpit to give us our information. And the result of that means that we do not read for ourselves. We do not think for ourselves. Maulana tells us this is the case, we must believe it. Without reading and seeing widely the scope of information that is available to us. We have Islamic books available to read. We have text about every single theme, every single issue that is widely available for us to be able to read. I came across a statistic about the US community, the community of the United States of America. And it stated that 1/4 of all adults will not pick up a single book in a year. How devastating is that? That there is such an uneducated community that they are so reliant on CNN, so reliant on Fox News, so reliant on NBC to tell them what to think, that they are nothing more than puppets and robots to whatever TV channel they are watching. I ask a simple question. How many people in this room, or in the audience at home from amongst the Shia and amongst the Muslims, read a single book in a year, cover to cover? I wonder if I was to take an honest poll, whether the Muslim community and the Shia community is any different to the American community. The outcome of being so ignorant of the world is very well known. If you ask an American, do you want to invade Iraq? They'll say, yes. We need to bring freedom to these people. We need to bring democracy to these people. My friend, show me where Iraq is on the map. Tell me 3 facts about Iraq other than the name Saddam. They won't know Saddam. Saddam Hussein. Tell me something about Iraq. You want to go to war with North Korea? Yes. That Kim Jong-il, he's a madman. Why is he a madman? Because CNN told you he was a madman. Because BBC told you he was a madman. I'm not saying he is or isn't. I'm saying, is that where you get your information from? The same people that told you Iraq had weapons of mass destruction? You still believe these people? Show me on the map. Show me on the map. You know, there was a video that came out about a month ago. I don't know if you saw this. I hope you'll find it. Please just YouTube this clip. It asked Americans, average American on the street, point to me on the map, where is North Korea? You want to go to war with North Korea? No problem. At least show me where it is on the map. I'm not joking. Some of them actually pointed to Canada on the map. They live in the United States. Some of them actually pointed to Canada. That's like me saying to you as Indians, you want to go to war with North Korea, show me where it is on the map, and you point to Pakistan. When you have such an ill-educated society, the outcome will be that whenever someone tells you something, you will believe it because you have no knowledge for yourself. The Shia, especially of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, especially of Imam Sadiq, should not become like this. Must not become like this. The only way to alleviate that potential, especially if my youth become readers, thinkers, ponderers, should always be attached to a book. Some book, be it fact or fiction, of some topic or the other that interests you, that will help you develop yourself as a human being. And we stated that this education requires us to know who those great leaders are, because there is such a vacuum in these areas that we are not producing the books that were produced in the last generation, and other people are taking the leadership role in the world. And as a result, the Muslim has no say, the Muslim has no power, the Muslim has no ability to lead in the world when it comes to these issues. This has to be something that is remedied. Otherwise, when other leaders present their ideas, it will come from a source which is very impure. It does not have the stamp of approval of the Quran and Sunnah of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam on it, that will be able to lead people out of the challenges that we have in the world today. And it will just perpetuate the cycle in one way or another. This is our state today. Then we stated that we want to conclude with certain principles that are mentioned from Quran and Sunnah about the way in which we should be when it comes to activism, and the way in which Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam did it, and the way in which we need to present our arguments today in the world. The first thing I will mention is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says within the Holy Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna Allah la yuhibbu alladhina, Allah does not love those who pronounce, who cause a loud voice of evil to take place in the society, إِلَّا مَنْ ظُلِمَ, except the one who has had oppression done upon him. Allah says in the Quran, Allah does not love the one who raises his voice to create a problem within society, except the one who oppression has been done upon him. We're often asked about our julus. We're often asked about raising our voice against oppressors. We're often asked when and how we should do this. The first principle is that Allah does not love the one who raises his voice to bring about a problem within society, except he who has had oppression done to him. Therefore, in this world today, when there is so much obvious and blatant oppression, it demands that we are raising our voice. It demands that we are thinking about how this world has become structured and whom we are speaking out against, how we are speaking out against them. The julus that takes place, especially for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, especially in the periods of Ashura and Arba'iniyah, are the foundation of that thinking and the manifestation of that thinking in our society. What we need to do is learn to bring other people into that practice, so that standing up against oppression isn't about my sect doing it, isn't about my religion doing it, it's a humanitarian movement against all types of oppression. How wonderful it would be if we can get the Muslim Ummah to rise for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. How wonderful it would be if we can get our Hindu brethren to come on the streets with us. How wonderful it would be if if we get our Christian brethren to come on the streets with us, the question I pose is, how do we export that message of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to a universal message? Whereby someone wants to stand up with us against injustice instead of just watching us stand up against injustice. Wouldn't that be the ultimate movement where all sects, all faiths think that we can stand together for the sake of against injustice? How do we get that to happen? Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He does not love this voice to be raised unless there is injustice done against people. Today, the way in which the world is structured is a very peculiar and strange structure of the world. What is considered legal and illegal is not in the favor of the human, but in the favor of the state, and is there to protect the state from everything and protect it from the human being. We mentioned yesterday that your privacy is no longer your own. Your phone isn't yours. Your phone belongs primarily to the state, and the information belongs to the state and to the company that sell that information so that they can learn how to market their products for you to buy their products. We stated freedom of speech is being taken away. We stated that the public space is being taken away from people. You will notice as well that the state also protects the worst of industries, so that the industry can also be protected against the human being and against justice. If, for example, there was a gunman here who is using a weapon to fire against people in the open, a mass murderer, especially as it happens in many countries, be it in the United States. Every day in the United States of America there is a mass murder. Every day in the United States of America. Why? Guns are so openly available. Why? Because the gun manufacturer is more important than the safety of the human being. And if you speak out against that, then the state will crack down upon you. You are anti-American. You are anti-US Constitution. So now if someone takes a gun and starts shooting someone, and I happen to be able to stop that man, and I do that, I have a car, I drive into that man, I have a gun, I shoot that man, I kill that man, I'd be considered a hero, wouldn't I? You stopped a mass murderer from killing someone. Now, if I was to protest or to chain myself against those bombs which are being sold to Saudi Arabia to bomb innocent civilians in Yemen, I would be arrested and I would have a criminal record against me. Can you see that? The structure of the society is not there to protect you, it's there to protect the industry that wants to kill you. Now think about this. It would be legal for me to stop that mass murderer, but it would be illegal for me to stop the weapons company from selling weapons to mass murderers like ISIS, like Israel, like Saudi Arabia. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam understood this very well, because until today you have the very same sorts of people that will say the rising of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was illegal. Yazid ibn Muawiyah was a just caliph. He was the legitimate caliph. Why? Because Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan pledged allegiance to him. And so long as Muawiyah pledged allegiance, so long as some people pledged allegiance to him, he was the rightful caliph. What Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam did was ghayr al-shar'i. It was against the law. He was illegal in rising up against Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Can you see that? Isn't this what they say? Isn't this what our Salafi brethren say? Isn't this what the Wahhabiyya say? Why do the Wahhabiyya say this? Why do Al Saud perpetuate this idea that Yazid was a just caliph? Very simple. Because if you legitimize the overthrow of an evil tyrant king, if you legitimize the overthrow of a pharaoh, of a Fir'aun, Imam Hussein alayhi salam's message becomes one against Al Saud as well. So they have to side with Yazid. Yazid was right. Yazid was a legitimate caliph. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, or they will say Imam Hussein radiyallahu anh, should not be fighting against Yazid. He's a just caliph. Because so long as Yazid is just, Saudi Arabia is also just. The moment Yazid becomes illegitimate and an evil tyrant and a pharaoh, Al Saud also become illegitimate and also become a tyrant and also become the modern day pharaohs. Now what we see from this is a very different understanding. We see that the way in which Islam sees what is legitimate and illegitimate, what Islam sees as haqq versus batil, is a very important way to understand what is objectively right and what is right in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. State will tell you, you can't do this, you can't stand up for the human rights. If you do, then there'll be problems against you. If you do, then we will target you. If you stand up, then your name will be watched. Your name will be on the red list. And I tell you what, the same way 99% of those Shia, the same way 99% of those Muslims listened to the Caliph and listened to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad in Kufa, today 99% of Muslims will accept Al Saud as being legitimate in the same way. The same threats that are made by Al Saud today will be the same threats that were made by Banu Umayyah 1400 years ago. The same people that were scared by Banu Umayyah 1400 years ago will be the same people that are scared by Al Saud today. And this is why our activism is very important. This is why understanding the Husseini message is very important. That we don't get caught up in these thought processes. That we understand the reality of what it means to stand up against oppression. Not the way in which it is defined and described by Banu Umayyah, or by this country, or by this state, but as defined by Quran and by Sunnah of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Yesterday, we asked you to have a look at Surah As-Saf, or the last verse of Surah Mumtahana, chapter number 60. And in here, verse number 13 and the verses of Surah As-Saf give us principles of activism in Islam. We will conclude with these, inshaAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in chapter number 60 of Surah Mumtahana, O you who believe, do not make friends. Do not make friends with the people with whom Allah's wrath is upon them. Those illegitimate tyrants, those modern day pharaohs, do not take them as friends. They have wrath upon them. Indeed, they despair of the hereafter, as the unbelievers despair of those in the tombs. Chapter number 61, verse number 2. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, lima taqulu ma la taf'alun. Why do you say that which you don't do yourself? The second principle of activism is not to say something and then not do it yourself. Don't call out Hussein's message and then not use Hussein's message for yourself. Do not say, I stand against Yazid, but then not stand against the Yazid of your own time. لِمَ تَقُولُ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. Why do you say, but then don't do it yourself? If you want to call out against Yazid, brilliant. But that's history. Call out against Yazid today as well. Allah says, كَبُرَ مَقْتًا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَن تَقُولُ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. it is most hated by Allah that you say that which you don't do. It is most hated to Allah that you call out against Muawiyah, you call out against Yazid, you call out against Banu Umayyah, but there are 20 Banu Umayyahs today and we don't raise a single finger or a single voice against them. It is most hated, the person who does that. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says a most amazing verse, so simple, about activism. Verse number 4. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna Allah yuhibbu alladhina yuqatiluna fi sabilihi saffan ka'annahum bunyanun marsus. Surely Allah loves those who struggle, who fight in His way, in ranks, as if they were a firm, compacted wall together. What did we say? Join together as a people against the pharaohs of this time, against the oppression of this time. Find out who are the leaders of the movement of today. Find out where are those protest movements. Find out which organizations need support. Work with them. Join together with these groups. Read the books of their leaders. Understand their goals. Allah loves that you work together in solidarity with each other. And then it talks about when you find those great leaders, not to give them bothersome time, not to work against them. Find those leaders, work with them. Verse number 5. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quotes Musa alayhi salam. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ يَا قَوْمِ لِمَا تُؤْذُونُونِي وَقَدْ نَعْلَمُونَ أَنِّي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ إِلَيْكُمْ. Musa said, "Oh my people, why do you give me so much trouble? Why do you give me so much trouble when you indeed know that I am the messenger of Allah to you?" It then continues down to verse number 8, a very famous verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, يُرِيدُونَ لِيُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَاللَّهُ مُتِمُّ نُورِهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. They, the oppressors, desire to put out the light of Allah with their mouths. And Allah shall perfect His light, no matter how much the kafir does not want Him to perfect His light. Last verse of Surah As-Saff, verse number 14. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages your activism, encourages your participation in justice. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kunu ansar Allah, kama qala Isa ibn Maryam lil-Hawariyyin, man ansari ila Allah? Qala al-Hawariyun, nahnu ansar Allah. O you who believe, be helpers of Allah. As Isa, son of Maryam, said to his disciples, who are the helpers of Allah? Who are my helpers in the cause of Allah? They said, we are the helpers in the cause of Allah. This evening, inshallah, we want to discuss a topic that is related to being the helper of Allah in activism, in joining forces with justice and goodness of this world, and that is under the title of how to build a strong relationship with the awaited Savior of mankind, the Master and Lord of our age, Imam al-Hujjah, Ajjalallahu ta'ala faraj al-Sharif. I'm going to ask a very simple question. And I just want everyone's genuine attention on this question, please. If you take very little, nothing else away from tonight, take this question home with you as your homework. I'm giving it to you early in the discussion, not at the end of the discussion. If you and I lived in Kufa in the year 60 after Hijrah, when Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi salam comes to Kufa in order to build the revolution of Imam alayhi salam, would I have been amongst those who initially raised the bay'ah in those 18,000 people? And would I have been amongst those who saw through that movement, continued on to help that movement? Or would I have been one of the 17,955 people or 995 people that left Muslim ibn Aqil as Salat al-Isha? I'm asking honestly. Would you have been amongst those 18,000 that initially gave bay'ah? Or would you have been amongst the 17,995 that left at the time of Salat al-Isha? Now, how do we answer that question? And how do we understand the reality of that question and the relationship between that question and the coming of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam and our relationship with Imam al-Hujjah ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah al-sharif? What did Banu Umayyah do? When Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad came, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad announced and said, anyone who is caught with Muslim ibn Aqil, he shall be arrested, his family shall be arrested, his belongings shall belong to the state, we shall confiscate them, and we shall kill those people who are working with Muslim ibn Aqil. 18,000 people rose. All but maybe 5 stayed with him, and this is why Muslim had to flee. And so, the likelihood is, statistically, I would have been one of those that left Muslim ibn Aqil, statistically speaking. How do I know whether I would have been that person today? Simple answer is, whether I am in movement with Imam, and whether the moment someone tells me not to work for Imam, I immediately drop what I'm doing and leave my movement for Imam today. Whatever it may be. Anything that I'm doing for the Imam, any goodness, the moment someone comes and tells me to do something else, offers me a Bollywood film instead, offers me haram music instead, offers me to go out to this location instead, opposite gender comes and messages me and makes me start talking to this person instead. Any sin that is easily corrupting me to stop me from continuing what I was doing for the Imam, if I'm that easily corrupted and stopped today for something so simple, I know 1400 years ago, I would never have been able to overcome something as simple as a threat on my life. Today I'm so easily corrupted, there will be no way when someone said, I'm going to arrest you and your family, would I have helped the Imam at the time in Kufa. It's a very simple, objective way of knowing whether I would be with or without the Imam. But now think about this concept today, very closely. Think about it. Which day, I'm asking a question, which day does the Imam, inshallah, announce his arrival? Which day? Which day? Friday. Ahsan. At what time does he announce his arrival? Dhuhr. It's Friday, Salatul Jum'ah. Over there what? Salatul Jum'ah. Which location does he first announce his arrival? Mecca. Ahsan. So we here, anyone know the time difference between here and Mecca? What time? 2.5 hours ahead or behind? Behind. So what time will it be here? Around 3 o'clock. Okay. Now you have already finished your Salat Jummah. You've gone home, or you've gone back to your work, you've gone to school, or whatever. You're thinking, where is Imam? Labbaik ya Mahdi. I recited Dua Nutbah, I'm waiting, it could be tomorrow. 3 p.m., the announcement comes. Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam is here. Now, you want to go help Imam. According to our hadith, 313 will immediately step and they will be taken to assist the Imam. Some hadith, very interestingly says, some of the 313 will go on the roof of their houses and they will ascend into the clouds and the clouds will take them to Mecca. What does that sound like in our times? Maybe a helicopter, maybe literally through the clouds, maybe there will be modern technology. But that is exclusive to 313 people. You take the step, you go. After that, wave of people will want to join the movement of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Some will delay, some will want to check, is this the Imam? Some will demand assistance. Hadith says, ulama say, some people will delay, they will go home, tell their wives, do I have permission? Tell their families, pack your bags. Some people will actually close their shops so that their shop is protected, not realizing in whose hand the rizq actually is. They will actually delay. The delay will not allow them to come to the Imam. But there will be waves of people that will try to come. Now I'm asking you a simple question. Help me with this. Do you think the governments in the countries of this world will want you to go and assist Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam? Yes or no? Yes or no? No. If Banu Umayyah was so ready to say to all of the Shia, if you take a step towards assisting Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, you will be arrested, your family will be arrested, your belongings will be taken from you, you will be killed the way in which we killed Muslim Aqil. I'm asking an honest question. No matter which country you live in the world, you live in Dubai, you live in Bahrain, you live in America, you live in France, you live in Germany, you live in India, you live in Burma. When the announcement comes at 12 p.m. Dhuhr on Friday, and it reaches here 3 p.m. Friday, or it reaches 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. or whatever time around the world, Shias will immediately want to move. The vast majority will delay for some reason or another. You will want to get your passport, you will want to get your debit card, you will want to get your credit card, something will happen, you will want to go and help the Imam. Do you think that they will let you go? Do you think that you'll be allowed to fly out of Bombay? Do you think you'll be able to purchase a ticket? Or do you think that you'll be called a terrorist? Do you think the governments around the world are going to want the Mahdian revolution? Do you think they're going to give you the legal means to travel from one country in transit to the other to get to Mecca, to get to Masjid Sahla, where the Imam will set up his house? Do you think it's going to be that easy? Really? Or do you think the very same processes that happened to the Shia in Kufa by Banu Umayyah 1400 years ago will happen to every one of those people who want to help the Imam, be they Christian, be they Sunni, be they Sufi, be they Shia, be they atheist? This is my question I am asking you. And be honest with yourself. Do you think the Trump government will give, or will they call anyone who helps Mahdi a terrorist? What will happen? What happens to a terrorist? Their passport is confiscated, their citizenship is revoked, their belongings are taken, their bank account is frozen. I'm asking, are you ready for that? Have you learned from history? Do you know what will happen? And are you ready for that movement to help Imam alayhi salam? If that is the way it ends up going. The need to build a strong relationship with the Imam is very much there. Lest we end up being like the Shia of Kufa, tomorrow on Friday, next week on Friday, following week on Friday, whichever Friday the awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farjah sharif comes. The difficulties that Rasulullah and his companions underwent, do you not think that we will also face the same difficulties? Do you not remember the stories of people like Abu Dhar? Do you not remember the stories of Bilal al-Habashi? You remember the stories of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen? Remember Mitham al-Tammar? What happened to Mitham al-Tammar? What happened to the companions of Hussein ibn Ali? Do we think it's just going to be, he comes and then we're just going to wave a magic wand and then the wand is going to bring justice? Or do you think that there is going to be a struggle, the same way there was a struggle in Mecca and in Medina and in Kufa and in Sham? The urgent need to build a strong relationship with the Imam is there upon us. Less, even worse, we not only leave Muslim ibn Aqil like the 17,995 did, 10,000 of them actually went to Kufa, the ones who wrote to Imam and then opened the sword against Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. True or not? Isn't it Kufa that called Hussein ibn Ali and then killed Hussein ibn Ali? Didn't Hussein alayhi salam announce on the 10th of Muharram, aren't you the ones that wrote to me for me to come? How do we build a relationship with Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam? Simple guidelines for me and for you, inshallah, to think about is this. First one is to have ma'rifah of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. من مات ولم يعرف بإمام زمانه مات ميتة جاهلية. He who dies without knowing the Imam of their time, without having ma'rifah of the Imam of their time, dies the death of Jahiliyyah. The Quran has the most phenomenal verse when it comes to ma'rifah of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. It comes in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 89. Please open your Qurans, open your phones, everyone, please. Ma'rifah of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter number 2 of the Quran, verse number 89. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the following, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ كِتَابٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَهُمْ. When there came to them, who is them? The Jewish community of Medina. When there came to them a book verifying that which they had with them, the Quran verifying that which was in the Torah. When the Jews had a book come to them verifying that which was within the Torah, وَكَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ يَسْتَفْتِحُونَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. And from a long time ago, the Jews used to pray for victory over those who disbelieved. What does this verse mean? In the Torah, the Jews knew that Rasulullah would be coming to Medina. And so en masse, they migrated from Jerusalem to Medina in order to wait for Rasulullah's coming. They knew he would come to what city? They knew his name. They knew what he would do. They knew he was their prophet. And from a long time ago, you used to ask for victory over the disbelievers. You know what this verse is? The 6th Imam alayhi salam says that the Jews of Medina used to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the name of Rasulullah to grant victory over the pagans. When they moved from Jerusalem to Medina, the pagans became fearful. It was a threat. You're threatening our pagan way of life, idol worship. So now they would go to war with each other. The Jews would say, "Ah, Allah, we have migrated, we have prepared ourselves all the way for the sake of the rising of Muhammad, your messenger. Grant us victory over the kuffar by virtue of the name of Rasulullah." This is what the 6th Imam says. Now look at what the verse says. وَكَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ يَسْتَفْتِحُونَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. From a long time ago, our Jewish brethren in Medina used to pray for victory over the kuffar by the name of Rasulullah. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ, and when Rasulullah came to them, مَا عَرَفُوا كَفَرُوا بِهِ. The Jews did not have ma'rifah of Rasulullah, they did kufr of him, they rejected, they belied him. Look at the last part of the verse. فَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. In 1 minute, they are believers, they are calling on Rasulullah by name. At the end of the verse, فَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. Problem here, مَا عَرَفُوا كَفَرُوا بِهِ. They did not have ma'rifah of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi. They did not have ma'rifah of Rasulullah. Ma'rifah of Rasulullah is achieved very simply. Ma'rifah means the following: to have a genuine insight, cognizance of that thing or that person. The Jews of Medina knew the name of Rasulullah, they knew which city he was coming to, but this didn't constitute ma'rifah, did it? It didn't mean ma'rifah, because when he came they rejected him, so they didn't actually have ma'rifah even though they knew the name of Rasulullah. We know the name of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. We know which day he's going to come. We know which time he's going to come. We know which city he's going to come. Brothers and sisters, that's not ma'rifah. That wasn't sufficient for the Jews. It won't be sufficient for me and you. Ma'rifah is the following. Very simple. Imagine I have a hairy disease. I have cancer. May Allah protect us all. Imagine I have cancer. I come and tell you, I have cancer. What will you say to me? You will say, may Allah help you with this. Praying for you, brother. Inshallah, Allah gives you shafa'ah quickly. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. Does this mean you have ma'rifah of what I'm going through? Does this mean you have insight, deep understanding of what I am going through as a human being? No, it doesn't, does it? You don't understand the fears that I have, the anxieties that I have. How much will the medicines cost? How much damage will it do to my body? Death is now at my doorstep. How will I face Allah on the Day of Judgment? Who will look after my spouse, my children after me? You're not understanding that. You may intellectually say, this is what he's thinking about, but you don't have ma'rifah of what I'm going through. You don't have insight of what I am going through, correct? How do you have ma'rifah of what I'm going through? Only if you had the same or the similar disease. Then you will know this is the difficulty of chemotherapy. This is the physical difficulty of radiotherapy. This is the anxieties that you will have. This is the fear of your family. This is the difficulty it places on your business. All of this will only come if you've gone through something similar in your life. Then you will understand what I am going through. This is ma'rifah. When it comes to ma'rifah of the Prophet or any of the Imams, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een, learning their name is not ma'rifah. Crying over them is not ma'rifah. Reading their hadith is not ma'rifah. Ma'rifah is understanding them because you have lived part of their life. The same way, if you needed to have ma'rifah of my disease, mean that you also had something similar as well. When you've lived a life similar to Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, to the Prophet, the difficulties, the charity, the goodness, the faith, the salat al-layl, the forgiveness, the rahmah, the activism, the movement, when you live a little bit like Rasulullah, then you will understand who Rasulullah really is. Because the same trials he underwent, will also undergo upon you as well. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamu alayhi has a famous hadith. He says, if you call yourself Shia, prepare for difficulty in your life. Prepare for austerity. One thing, saying you are Muhammad, saying you are Shia, and another thing, living it. A mu'min is the one who has iman, faith in wilayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. A Shia is the one who acts like Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Completely different. Don't mix them up. Shia is higher than a mu'min. Here, the only way we can have ma'rifah of the Imam is this. Because if we don't have a life like him, struggling like him, being honorable like him, giving like him, then we will not have ma'rifah. When Rasulullah came, all the Jews thought was, I just need to know his name. I just need to know which city he's coming from. Because they didn't understand the reality of Rasulullah, they rejected Rasulullah. They thought, this can't be our prophet. Mahdi sallallahu alayhi comes, the same thing will happen. He will come, and we don't have ma'rifah of him, we will reject him the same way the Jews did, the same way the people of Kufa rejected Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Second and last thing about having a relationship with Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam is very simple. Every day, brothers and sisters, every day, talk to him. Just talk to Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. That's it. Last time we were here, I think we gave a story, and I will repeat it again so that you are aware of it. One of the greatest scholars at the time of Imam al-Khomeini alayhi rahmah, by the name of Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Hadi Milani, says the following story. He says, when the revolution of Iran took place, I noticed that there weren't many ulama in the villages. And so I decided to sponsor and call students for the purpose that when they graduate, they would go live in the villages where there was no education, no Islamic education, no alim there, so they didn't know how to really live. So he gathers about 300 students, and he trains them for 4 years or 10 years or whatever, and then he gives them the graduation ceremony. He now stands in front of them and he gives a final lesson to all of them. And he says, this is my last lesson to you. If you don't follow my last instructions, come back. I don't want you being alim in the village that I'm sending you. You have to listen to me. This is my last instructions to you. First instruction he gives is very simple. He says, I don't want you to teach my fatwa. I haven't trained you so my names become famous. I've also taught you the fatwa of other marajid. You give the fatwa of someone else other than me. How much humility and sincerity in that statement. But the second advice is for you and I here now. Build a relationship with Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam through talking to him. Ayatollah Milani tells all the Tullab, he says, the second thing you must know, if you don't do this, come back. I don't want you teaching. He says, all of you, every single night, before you sleep, you sit and you just talk to Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Just talk to him. Tell him something. Talk to him about the struggles that you have in life. Talk to him about the struggles in your family. Talk to him about the problems in your community. Ask him to intercede to help you become a better person. Just talk to him so that every day there is a strong bond between you and him. Should I tell you how far that bond will go? There's a hadith from the 8th Imam, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. One of his great companions by the name of Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman. Yunus sitting with Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, big companion. giant narrator of our hadith. Eighth Imam says to him, "O Yunus, don't talk like the Qadariyya. Don't talk like the other sects talk. Don't say that everything is determined by God." The Qadariyya, those who determine that everything is decided by the Qadr of Allah. You know, we have that debate, is everything left to God? Is everything God steps out of it? The sixth Imam says it's a balance. Some things we are left free from, some things Allah decides for us. Anyway, so now Imam Rida alayhi salam is now talking to the companion and he teaches us something. At the end, Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman says, "Thank you for an amazing answer. May I kiss you on the forehead?" He kisses the forehead of Imam Rida alayhi salam and then he says something phenomenal. He says, "You have opened up something for me that I have never understood before." Very simple, but amazing. This is the job of the Imam, to elevate us to a new station of understanding, a new being within our own selves. The companions who were sitting with the Imam directly, they had that. Imam is there for you and I to do the exact same thing. Just because he's behind the veil doesn't mean he's not there to elevate our thinking, to open us up in our heart. Talk to the Imam, build a bond with him, have insight and ma'rifah, live like the Imam lives, and I promise you, insha'Allah, that when the Imam comes, you will not be like the Jews who had no ma'rifah of Rasulullah. You will not be like those who called Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, but then left him, and worse, raised a sword against Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. All of us, insha'Allah, will be with the awaited Savior, based upon the bond that we have made with him in this time of khayr. Have ma'rifah of the Imam by virtue of his actions, and have a strong bond with the Imam by just talking to him every day, inshallah. To see the greatest bond of any human being with an Imam alayhi salam, look at Abu Fadl al-Abbas ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Abu Fadl was born with the one task, the one goal of looking after Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Parents, when you conceive a child and you raise a child, dedicate that child to Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. The same way Amir al-Mu'mineen and al-Baneen salamullahi alayha dedicated this child in the service of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Their name, their purpose, their life is devoted to the Imam's protection and service. We mentioned the other day, we will repeat. Abu Fadl is constantly asking Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to allow him to enter into the battlefield. Abbas's heart is torn apart at the cries, al-Adash, al-Adash. He had a special relationship with Lady Sakina. Because Sakina was so close to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Lady Sakina was so close to al-Abbas alayhi salam. And when she would cry out, al-Adash, this would tear the heart of Abbas the way in which nothing else hurt Abbas alayhi salam. You can imagine there were tents which had different things in them. One of the tents was supposed to keep where the food and the mushk would be. You can imagine Bibi Sakina going into that tent and opening the mushk, trying to pour it towards her parched lips, and not a drop of water falling to those lips. You can imagine her taking this mushk and pouring it into the open mouth of Ali Asghar, saying, Asghar, if there is a drop of water, I will give you this water before I give myself this water. And not a drop falling into the lips of Asghar. When the children cried out, Oh Abbas, the thirst is killing us, Abbas could not handle this anymore. He comes towards Imam al-Hussein and says, Oh Hussein, please now allow me to enter into the battlefield. Allow me to attack. Allow me to go and get water for the children. It is said, Imam al-Hussein looked to Abbas, and our Dhakirin say that he takes the hand of Abbas and he walks out of the area of the camps and walks to the edge of the battlefield. He says, Oh my beloved Abbas, if you go, who will command my army? If you die, who will be there to stand with my flag in the face of these people, these wretched people? It is said that Abbas looks back and says, Master Hussein, look into the battlefield, look into the tents. There are no people left but me and you. Which army do you speak of? Everyone has gone. Your Habib has gone. Your Akbar has gone. Your Qasim has gone. It is just me and you. Why do you stop me from going? There is no one left but me and you. Imam has to now let Abbas go. He begins to get ready. Sayyida Zainab comes out and says, Oh Abbas, do you remember that time when our father was describing what would happen to me on his deathbed? He said, Oh Zainab, there would be a time when you would be chained, when they would lash you, when you would be paraded from city to city, when they would try to sell you as a slave in the marketplace, when they would hurl stones at you, when they would throw boiling water at you, when they would make you stand outside the palace of Yazid, whilst the court jesters and the clowns would surround you with tambourines, singing, clapping and dancing. Do you remember when he said that this place would be decorated? I never understood, Abbas, how that could have really happened whilst you would be there to protect me. But now I see you departing from the battlefield. I realize this day has come upon us. Abbas enters into the battlefield. It is said that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam said to him, Oh Abbas, do not take your sword with you, because I do not want you to kill all the enemies. Your job is to go and get water for Sakina and the children. It is said that he takes with him a spear, and he takes with him alam, and he takes with him the mush. It is said that he rides towards the bank of the river Euphrates, and with that spear alone, he is killing the enemies, stopping them from attacking him. I ask you a question, brothers and sisters. Can you imagine the leader of the children, Sakina, what must be happening in her heart at this moment? She is imagining Abbas is going, but she does not know what is happening. All she knows is that everyone who has left for the battlefield has not come back, except that they have been slaughtered by the enemies. You can imagine that Sakina is coming at the edge of the tent, looking at the alam, looking at the flag of Abbas. She is turning round saying, Asghar, do not cry. I see the flag of Abbas reaching the banks of the river Euphrates. Oh Baqir, do not cry. Oh Fatima Sukhra, my uncle Abbas will not let me down. My uncle Abbas is coming in a few minutes with water. Asghar, just hold on for a few more minutes. I can see the flag of Abbas returning. Oh Asghar, Abbas is bringing water for you. But at this moment, What she cannot see is who is surrounding Abbas. They call out and say, do not allow a single drop of water to reach the tents of Hussein, because if they are given water, they will be such powerful men, we will not be able to stop them. Do whatever you can. And they threw everything at Abu Fadl Abbas. They threw every spear that they had. They shot every arrow that they could possibly strike at him. It is said that one of the arrows landed into the eye of Abu Fadl Abbas. It is said at this moment, when his horse is being struck, when he is surrounded by an army, a wall of people to stop him to return back towards the tents, all he can do is turn the horse away from these. As he is turning back towards the enemies, they begin to surround him. One person comes from one side, he comes and he hides, and as Abbas is trying to defend himself, he strikes the arm of Abu Fadl Abbas. Abbas's arm falls towards the floor. He takes this mushk, he puts it in his other hand. Someone comes from the other side, strikes the arm of Abu Fadl Abbas. The arm falls towards the floor. They begin to throw everything that they have at him. The arrow ends up in his eye. The blood is pouring down the face of Abbas. At this moment, when Abbas turns round, they begin to surround him. One man pulls Abbas off and throws him towards the floor. It is said that one night, one alim was reciting the Maqtal of Abu Fadl. He goes to sleep. In his dream, he sees Fatima al-Zahra come to him. Fatima said, "Oh Sayyid, you recited the tragedy of my son, Abu Fadl al-Abbas, but you did not recite the greatest tragedy of my son." He said, "Oh my dear mistress, oh Sayyidah Fatima, I recited that he was unable to bring the water back to Sakina." She said, "This is not the greatest tragedy for Abbas." He said, "Oh Sayyidah, I recited that he had his arms severed." She said, "This is not the greatest tragedy for Abbas." He said, "Oh Sayyidah, what is the greatest tragedy for Abbas?" She said, "When my son fell from the horse, he had no arms to break his fall. There was an arrow in his eye. When he fell towards the floor, all he could do was fall towards his face, the arrow going deeper into his eye. This is what happened to my son Abbas. Every one of the other shuhada, when they fell from their horse, they had their arms to break their fall. Abbas does not have his arms. It is the arrow in the eye of Abbas that broke his fall." As he falls, the hadith says very specifically, Abbas was chopped into pieces. The hadith says that he is cut into pieces. This is why when the ulama reburied Abbas, one of their servants came and said, "We always heard how giant of a man Abbas was. Why is the grave of Abbas so small?" This is because he was cut into so many pieces. They cut his legs, and they cut his arms, they cut part of his body, so that when Hussein arrived, all he could see was the chopped pieces of Abbas on the floor. This is how Hussein saw his beloved. Hussein is called out, "Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah." "Oh Aba Abdullah, accept my salutation." Hussein hears this call. He calls out, "Abbas, now my back has been broken." He falls towards the floor. He can only crawl towards Abbas. As he arrives at the broken body of Abu Fadl, he sees what has happened to him. "Oh my beloved Abbas, what have they done to you? If only Sakina knew what Abbas is going through at this moment." At this moment, Abbas picks up the head and the body of Abbas. Hussein picks up the body of Abbas and places his head on his lap. He wipes the blood away from his eye. Hussein is looking into the eye of Abbas. Abbas is looking up into the face of his beloved Hussein. He says to him, "Oh my master Hussein, I have one last request for you. I had promised Sakina I would bring water for her. I do not wish for my body to be He says, Abbas, all my life you have been calling me master. You have always called me Aqa. Please, just call me brother once, because you have always acted in a way where I have been your master. What you have done for me, we are brothers, Abbas. How does Abbas not respond but say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, oh my Akhi al-Aziz, oh my dear beloved brother, salutations be upon you. And Abbas passes from this world. Hussein returns back towards the camps. Sakina is standing outside the tent. Father, where is Abbas? Father, you went to go and meet Abbas. Where is my uncle? I did not care for the water. All I wanted to see my uncle Abbas. Where is he? How can Hussein say other than Abbas lies by the banks of the river Euphrates? That is said, from that time onwards, Sakina never cried for her own thirst. Sakina would never cry for thirst. Sakina would never ask for any water for herself, because she did not want water, she wanted her beloved Abbas. It is said that when on the night of Sham al-Ghariba, the tyrants gave a little bit of water to Ahlul Bayt, it is said that Sakina took the water, she did not drink it. She went to Ali Asghar and said, Asghar, here is the water that I have promised you for Abbas. Here is the water that you have been given. And she could do nothing but pour it onto the grave of Ali Asghar. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Please raise your hands, let us join each other in dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the appearance of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, to allow us to be alongside him at all times in our life and in our death. Ya Allah, bihaqqi Abu Fadl Abbas, Bab al-Hawa'ij, we have many hajat for the needs of our community, our friends, our family, ourselves, our marhumeen. Ya Allah, there are many people around the world going through such desperate times, those who are in a state of war, poverty, homelessness, disease, disaster. Ya Allah, grant them all safety, security and victory. Bihaqqi Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. Grant us the ziyarah of Abbas fi dunya wal akhirah, and allow us to die in the love of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Wassalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can I ask you to recite one loud salawat in honor of Abu Fadl Abbas ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi ajma'in.